Every month, $3 supporters at Patreon and Subscribestar get the benefit of an AMA, and $5 supporters can also give me a shout-out. So let's answer the question supporters asked during August. If you'd like to ask a question for September, you can subscribe at the links below. We'll start on Patreon, where Darth Vega has some questions about the Waco miniseries and the siege at Mount Carmel it's based on. The government claimed Koresh was abusing children. Is there any evidence of this? Absolutely none whatsoever. And they weren't even claiming that until the initial raid had gone wrong and the FBI was called in. People all over the country were complaining that something like this was done by the ATF over guns, so they cooked up the child abuse thing to give them cover. After the massacre, the children were taken into government custody. There's an absolutely horrible form of mental abuse called deprogramming, which is where you supposedly undo the brainwashing of cults, but you really mentally bully them into saying whatever you want. The natural attrition rate of people leaving cults is actually higher than with deprogramming, and in the process you do serious harm to the person's mental health, harming their sense of identity and creating often permanent anxiety and PTSD. And that is what they did to those children. They were forced to claim abuse in front of cameras so the public wouldn't be outraged at the massacre, but after they were rescued from the deprogrammers, real psychologists were able to at least partly undo the damage, and they learned that the claims of abuse had been a pack of lies. The show makes it seem like the ATF backed off their initial assault after getting a phone call from someone inside the compound that there were women and children inside the building. Was the ATF really not aware of this, or did they not care? No, it was commonly known that there were children in the compound. They only claimed otherwise when Sheriff Lynch contacted the ATF and was basically like, "Hey, what are you doing? There are children in there." The real reason they backed off was they'd run out of ammo. What do you think caused the CS gas to ignite into an inferno and burn down the building? Oh, we know what it was. CS, or 2-chlorobenzyl-malonitrile, isn't a gas. It's a powder. It has to be mixed with something to turn it into a gas, and all the things you can mix it with are either highly flammable or highly toxic. In this case, it was mixed with benzene. On top of that, investigators had found Flight-Right CS gas grenades in the rubble, which use a pyrotechnic to set them off. The FBI acknowledged they'd used these in 1999, but they were completely absent from the 1994 report they'd turned over to Congress. But really, I think the bigger point is one they made at the end of the miniseries, where this sort of thing, tear gas leading to an inferno, had happened to the FBI several times in the decade prior to Waco, and yet they made no preparations to put out a fire if one started. Who is to blame for this tragedy? Janet Reno, the FBI agent in charge of the scene? Well, as they say, the buck stops here, so that'd be Bill Clinton. And make no mistake, Janet Reno had a much bigger level of involvement than the miniseries makes out. She personally approved the final assault. And just as it's ridiculous to think that Joe Biden knew nothing of the Mar-a-Lago raid, it's even more ridiculous to think that Bill Clinton knew nothing about this. There's plenty of blame to go around, but primarily it would go to the FBI agent in charge and the ATF agents who started it off to distract from the whole Ruby Ridge fiasco. And then, of course, the FBI head and Reno, both of whom approved the final assault, without giving Koresh the 2 weeks he was given to finish his manuscript on the 7 Seals, after which he'd promised to surrender himself. They'd only waited 5 days. Pipsqueak asks, with gas prices in a slight slump, doesn't this prove wrong everyone who keeps bleating on and on about how the free market just means companies can charge whatever they want and will drive prices through the roof? Well, prices are through the roof, as if gas is a free market, but that's beside the point, except people are finding ways to use less gasoline instead of bankrupting themselves. Yes, and they have no excuse because that's exactly what we saw after Hurricane Katrina as well. The claim has always been that economic equilibrium doesn't apply to gasoline because people have to drive to work and so on, so they won't cut down on usage. But after Katrina, what we saw was that yes, people will cut back on gas. They'll stop making unnecessary trips. They'll take fewer trips to the store and stock up more. They'll carpool, all sorts of things. And of course, now, with inflation at a 40-year high, people are diverting gas money to other essentials like groceries. Really, it's just a way they can use their usual scapegoat, corporate greed, instead of blaming their precious government. Sid Padmanabhan asks, in an ANCAP society, how would negligence be punished? Would it even be a crime, considering it doesn't technically violate the NAP? No, negligence is the result of you not taking the steps you should have taken to prevent harm. This happens in two ways. One is if you create the danger yourself. To use the old cartoon example, you've got the piano up on a rope 2 stories above the sidewalk. Since you created that situation, it's up to you to make sure everything's secure and the piano isn't going to fall. Even if you didn't mean for it to happen, you had the responsibility to secure it because you created the risky scenario to begin with. The other is if you're contractually obligated in some way. Think of a security guard who's asleep on the job. His negligence results in theft of the property he's supposed to be guarding. Even though he didn't mean for it to happen, it was his job to stop it. As for the punishment, it would probably just be financial, sort of like a civil trial today. So, that's it for the questions, but we have a shout out from Thomas Urbanski over on Subscribestar. An unfitting personal plug. Quite recently I've kickstarted something I call a mutual education group called Academia Cyber SOA, Cyber Owl Academy. There are 2 main goals. First is to create a place for specialists who want to share their knowledge without ending their current career. Second is to show people that a bottom-up initiative can work, and we don't need approval or help from any big entity. Not from government, not from church. I don't want to bother you with details, but there's one quirk I want to share. So far, it's easier to find great specialists who want to teach for free than students who attend the meetings regularly. Fingers crossed that's just because it's still vacation time. Why this unfitting plug? Well, right now we're an exclusively Polish-speaking group, though if there'll be enough interest, we are willing to expand on that front. If I still have your audience interest, here are our links. You can see those below. He adds, we're focused on game dev right now. Long term, we want to expand on other industries. And in an update, he says, we just greeted our first native English-speaking person. The English part of the server is underdeveloped, but it's officially there. So good luck to him. Alright, that does it for another month. Thanks so much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne, and please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. You'll also find the links to my Patreon and Subscribestar there, so you can become a regular supporter and get all my content early and ad-free, and you can also get other benefits like special Discord access, monthly AMAs, and shoutouts. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.